Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to invite the next two speakers from Athletes for Hope. Today, we've learned a lot about the top-down impact of organizations, and we're going to learn now about what can happen when you go from the bottom up. Suzanne is the Chief Wellness Officer, and we appreciate that she specializes in research because data helps us to identify best practices. She will be joined with Denise, I believe, who is a Ph.D. candidate in sports management and leadership at Western Ontario University in Canada. So thank you so very much. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, beautifully.
Awesome. Yeah, I changed my name. It's Suzanne. Denise should be joining me any minute now, and I'm really excited to be here today to talk with you all about Athletes for Hope and about what we've been doing in this space as leaders. And 1 second, I'm going to share my screen. We'll get started. Awesome. Here we go. So as mentioned, I'm Suzanne Potts. I'm with Athletes for Hope, and we're talking about athlete mental health as a human right. And just wanted to share just a little bit about this imagery here. This is Sonny Richards-Ross. She's an athlete that we worked with here in Austin for a big event. And we just love this image of her high-fiving kids and being in the moment with a whole group of incredible students at a school that we work with here in Austin. So here's our agenda. We feel strongly at Athletes for Hope, and everything we try to do has a lens of equity, inclusion, and certainly accessibility. And so when we are doing presentations or talking about this, we try to include an agenda. Our big focus is on trauma-informed care when we're working with athletes. We're putting a lot of athletes out in the communities. Some of our athletes themselves have had trauma, and so we infuse agendas and things like that to let our audiences know what we're talking about. So this agenda today, we're going to go over just who we are, set the tone, talk a bit about our founders. There's two actual chapters that we're talking about here, so we're blending them in this one presentation. And I want to tell you a little bit about Athletes for Hope because we're really proud of our work, and hopefully you all learn a bit more about the work that we do across the globe supporting athlete advocacy. We're going to then dive deeper into athlete and mental health, talk about our methodology and writing the chapter. And I'm really thrilled to have my colleague Denise Kamyuka here to join me in this. She is an incredible researcher. She's a PhD candidate. I'll have her introduce herself, but I can't say enough about how thrilled I am to work with her in this space because we just have had so much to learn, and she's been a huge part of that. So she's going to go into our methodology and our findings and just overview of why we've been doing this. And then lastly, we've got some recommendations. We are excited to launch some new ideas into this space, as well as start a national conversation. So this is the first time we've publicly talked about it outside of writing the chapter. And this for us has been a game changer in shaping our work moving forward. So thrilled to be invited. Thank you, Yvonne, and everyone who set this conference in motion and these book chapters. So I'll just quickly introduce myself, and then I'm going to pass it over to Denise. That's us on the left. I'm Suzanne Potts. I am the Chief Wellbeing Officer at Athletes for Hope. I live in Austin, Texas, and I'm a professor at the School of Social Work at UT Austin. I don't know if there's any Longhorns in the group, but it's a rule. I should be wearing burnt orange. I realize I'm wearing Texas Tech red, but I have been a professor there for 12 plus years, and I teach information systems and communication and social work and teach their capstone, which is a evidence-based project policy and program review in the Graduate School of Social Work. So as a social worker, I've been thrilled to do this work with Athletes for Hope. I'm a former soccer player, and just really excited to tell you about who we are today. And Denise.
Hi, yeah. So I am the community outreach coordinator with Athletes for Hope, one of the outreach coordinators, and I am also a PhD student, as mentioned, at Western University. I'm studying social entrepreneurship looking at female context. And yeah, I'm a passionate, I guess, avid researcher. So being able to do this and add some evidence-based research to what we're doing, to this amazing programs that we have at AFH, yeah, something that I'm just really happy to be part of this, really proud to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thanks, Denise. Glad to see you. Okay. So, our journey. So a little bit about who we are and where we got started. We have been a nonprofit organization for the past 17 years. And Athletes for Hope was founded by a core group of really incredible athletes. It was actually Lance Armstrong, Mia Hamm, and Andre Agassi who initially had the idea. They got together, and each of them in their own rights were really passionate about athlete advocacy or finding a cause that they were passionate about. For Lance, obviously it was cancer. Mia also has a cancer connection. Andre Agassi has a passion for serving kids in schools in his Las Vegas community. So they actually looped in Muhammad Ali, if you can imagine, and the story grew from there. And they brought in the group they have listed here with Warwick Dunn, Jeff Gordon, Tony Hawk, Andrea Yeager, Jackie Joyner-Kersee to come together as a collective to think through how we could do this better. And so their idea was to build off of the work that they had all done individually and build out educational opportunities for athletes to be educated about philanthropy or find out about what you're passionate about and to support others in this journey. So where we started with our 12 founders, incredible group, we now have well over 12,000 athletes that we've worked with in this space. The other thing that they noted was that many of the athletes, they wanted to give back outside of their sport. They knew they were passionate about perhaps certain things, but they didn't know where to begin. And certainly we found with our student athletes that many of them are just young and maybe don't know what they're passionate about at this point. So we work through our Causeway process and we talk with them about discovering your passion outside of sport. So that's a little bit about our founders. Who we are at Athletes for Hope, again, as a nonprofit organization, we are rooted in education. So the first thing we do is educate athletes about sports philanthropy, about getting involved. We are what we say cause neutral or sports neutral. We're open to any and all sports and have worked with well over 25 different sports at the pro, Olympic, and Paralympic and student athlete level. We are a nonprofit organization. And so the big thing, the thread that kind of weaves through everything we do is that we promote belonging, equity, inclusion, and diversity in our work across sport and communities. And so that for us looks like we're about what the athlete is about. We're not about any one thing necessarily. However, we have found that there are a couple areas that bubbled up for us over the years. And so again, trying to listen to athlete voice and be inclusive in our work, we've created a couple of programs listed below that really focus on some core areas that make it easier for us to connect athletes if they're so interested. So the first one is AFH Fit. And that, again, athletes are known for their fitness and their physique and their nutritional choices. And so we've created opportunities and content for athletes to go into schools, after school programs, and talk with kids about being fit through a series of movement and activities-based agendas. The Whole Being Athlete, we're going to talk about later. That is our mental health programming that we're doing. We have a Hospital Heroes program. Again, we found that athletes love to visit kids in hospitals. The immeasurable joy that comes from having an athlete Zoom in or visit in person if they're able now has been just incredible gift. We've had some remarkable stories of advocacy through children's hospital networks and partners in that space. So that's our Hospital Heroes program. And then AFH University. So I've been part of that for the past 8 years. And we connect athletes in the collegiate level at 17 different campuses to service and volunteerism in the same way that we would with our pro Olympic, Paralympic athletes, just doing it as a team. Again, going back to the voice and choice concept, it gives athletes a choice to give back. It gives them an opportunity to serve. We vet all the causes that they're passionate about and set items up for them to do, and they can choose to then go in and volunteer and serve. So it's not something that the coach is mandating. It's truly something that they have to want to do to get involved with in the community. And then some of our advocacy initiatives, these are just general ones. I'll talk more specifically later, but we have a COVID-19 vaccine education campaign with the Health and Human Services. It's the Sports Can Do It campaign, if you've seen that out at any of the sporting events you've been to. The Children's Rights in Sports, again, another themed, bigger initiative with Aspen Institute talking about children's overall rights to participate in sports. And that has become the base of what we're doing here today. And then a voting rights campaign. So I'm going to give a couple examples and specify here in a minute. So the way we do our work is through, again, a series of workshops. We educate athletes. It could be one-on-one. It could be a whole team. Maybe it's the Denver Broncos rookie camp, or a baseball team, or, we work at LSU, right? So there's a whole number of teams and groups that we work with as a whole group. Sometimes they come to us in smaller groups or individually, and we talk through what it is that they want to be doing as their passion. We then help make those connections. I think where we have, as I mentioned, almost 12,000 athletes in this space, we have almost as many charity partners. And so for us, that's really exciting, because athletes say, I'm passionate about animals, unhoused people, veterans, whatever it is that they're passionate about, we can help make those connections possible for them. And then the last part of our mission, which is really a core tenet of our pillars, is recognition. We know that there are a lot of stories about athletes not doing great things in the world, and that get picked up really quickly. We have found it's our mission to help promote all the good things that athletes do on a day-to-day basis. So traditional or social media, we're out promoting all over our social media. You'll see stories of athletes doing great things and using sport for good. So just a couple of examples. I wanted to just share them real quick. These are part of our chapter in the book that we talk about. Some concrete examples that we have been really proud to take part of. The Feeding America campaign, we worked with the National Feeding America group, and we identified local food banks. As I mentioned, we have university campuses, we have clusters of athletes all over the place in the United States. We identified through the month of November some food banks and did just, again, a major food drive where we're able to bring our athletes to the table to actually do service. They either did a food drive or they supported in handing out food. We also paired that with a social media campaign. And so they were able to share about food insecurities or food deserts across the United States via their social media. So pretty much any way an athlete was interested in talking about this, if they weren't comfortable getting out and doing things, or they didn't have the time, they could do a digital campaign with us through our social media. The 1,000 Days campaign as well. These are all had a digital component where opportunities to focus on food and nutrition. And again, this actually ended up going to the White House and had a big campaign with some of our more high profile athletes focusing on food and nutrition. ESPN I'm a Voter campaign. Before the last election cycle, we paired with ESPN and our athlete network to identify I'm a Voter graphics and some opportunities to go out and have vote, I forgot the word I'm looking for, to go out and sign up to vote, to become a registered voter. So we had some voter drives that we made available for our athletes to participate as volunteers, or again, using on their social media to share about why it's important or why they themselves were voters. Some of them had videos, a lot of them use social media just because it's easy, and that's where the kids are these days. And then another example we wanted to share is our Wellbeing athlete initiative. And this is something that has gotten a larger traction, I would say, for us at Athletes for Hope. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that before I pass it over to Denise. One second. Oh, here's a couple of photos. I forgot we'd attach these from our previous campaigns. Again, legislatively, social media, in-person, local events, we have prepared kind of the gamut of advocacy opportunities. And so throughout our entire presentation, you'll see some imagery from campaigns that we've participated in or supported in various ways. So, all right, quickly. Our Wellbeing Athlete Initiative actually started way back when in 2019. We just did a literature review. We found out and looked at some of the data supporting athlete mental health and some of the challenges that athletes were facing with their own mental health. And we identified some really kind of startling data in this space, which I'll share here in a minute. And so I was talking about, why is this important? Why are athletes talking about this? We wrote a couple pieces for our website. We had mental health month activities that we did. And we kind of just kept it to May. And then what kept coming up for us was people kept coming back to one of the articles that had some of our citations and literature in it and wanted to know more. How can I get involved? How can I tell my story? What can I do to advocate for athlete mental health? Or where can I get educated? If you know anything about mental health in this space, a lot of the programs that are out there really are focused on people, general public. There weren't as many that were just athlete focused. And so we thought this was an interesting piece to take on, where we have maybe, 50 to 100 or 200 people that view our website any given day. The mental health articles were getting thousands of views. And so we realized something was going on. Concurrently, we also started getting people messaging us, coaches, young kids, not just elite athletes, but all kinds of people were messaging saying, I want to tell my story. I'd like to do more. How can I get involved in athlete mental health? So we started kind of tracking the data and created this initiative, again, using athlete voice. So the first month we did just listening, and tell us what you'd be interested in, what would make sense to you. And we came up with our 4 main pillars, which are around storytelling, advocacy, education, and convening. And the reason these were important is because these were all athlete driven. This wasn't something we just thought, oh, this makes sense. It was literally what people kept coming back to us and asking for. The goals were to raise awareness, focus on access and acceptability of mental health resources in the athlete space. Empowering and educating athletes about mental health issues and advocacy became really important to us, especially as others, and we started to hear more heartbreaking stories from athletes who didn't feel empowered or who were struggling to find resources. And most importantly, for those who were voiceless, for those athletes that lost their life or were not able to move forward because of their mental health issues. So it became really personal to us, I think, and empowering when we talk to some of these athletes about what they're passionate about. Not that animals and veterans and other topics aren't equally important, but when you're talking about a person's mental health and how they push through that resilience or challenge, it just took on a whole new meaning for us in the office. And then the last bullet there is just elevating mental health advocacy. We are thrilled to connect to anyone that's in the mental health space, if they're a organization, if they're a clinician, if they're supporting athlete mental health. We have been talking to people left and right. And so if you are a person that wants to talk, we'd love to share information at the end of this or contact us so we can connect with you and share you as a resource. So we are a conduit of information. We are not a mental health organization, and we just want to be here to help others share their stories or connect. Certainly, we've seen lots of high-profile athletes, Naomi Osaka, right? Kevin Love. We have a whole list of ambassadors on our website that are pretty powerful. We also have equal number of athletes that are just your everyday athletes that are out telling their story. And I think sometimes their stories are even more powerful. Denise, do you want me to run through these or do you have this slide?
I can take this.
Okay, hand it off to Denise.
No problem. Right. So we were asked to contribute to the book on athlete human rights. And so we wanted to do a chapter on athlete mental health, because as you can tell, we're very passionate about athlete mental health. And so we wanted our contribution to also be evidence-based. And so we decided to conduct a qualitative research project on this and trying to really get some evidence behind our position and provide this impetus for what we believe should be a national athlete's mental health Bill of Rights. It's a mouthful, but that's where we're going with all this research. And so when we're conducting our literature review, we found that 35% of elite athletes experience mental health disorders, and about 85% of athletic trainers actually have experienced and have noticed their student athletes having anxiety and depression and other mental health conditions. Despite this huge number of trainers being able to identify this, we only have about a 10% rate of collegiate athletes seeking help. in the mental health for mental health conditions. And we'll go back into a little more detail as to like why we're seeing such a low number in the next few slides. But this, this statistic was 35% of elite athletes. If we want to compare it to the general public, general public only experiences about 20% of the public having or experiencing mental health disorders. So if we're going to start, I think we should start off with the definition of mental health that we are using. And we got this from WHO, who obviously believe that health is a human right. And they extend this definition of health to include mental health. And so we're going with this definition, which reads, mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stress of life, realize their abilities, learn well and work well, contribute to their community. It is an integral component of health and well-being that underpins our individual and collective abilities to make decisions, build relationships, and shape the world we live in. Mental health is a basic human right, and it is crucial to personal, community, and socioeconomic development. Right. So in our research and in the literature review, we came across a number of mental health conditions that are present or that are reported in amongst athletes. So this is not an exhaustive list, but these conditions are the ones that they have the most research around them, and that being very little research around athlete mental health, even though these are the ones that have shown up. And so you find that it seems as if there's a vicious cycle that's occurring with these disorders. So it's particularly if we're looking at sports that celebrate leanness, you find there's like a high prevalence of eating disorders, or in male sports that may present as body dissatisfaction. And that ultimately leads to a lot of athletes experiencing burnout because they over-exercise. And unfortunately, burnout is really underreported, and mainly because there aren't proper diagnostic, or there's not an extensive array of diagnostic tools to help coaches and auxiliary staff identify burnout. And so it's often misdiagnosed for depression or anxiety. So the problem with this is if we're not seeing burnout as a problem, then we aren't trying to find better tools and better ways of assessing it or analyzing it. But at the same time, if we're minimizing depression and anxiety to burnout, then we're actually creating stigma where it seems like, if my anxiety is not associated to my performance, then I'm weaker, I'm less resilient. And so this, as I said, this creates this vicious cycle. We would love to see a lot more attention being paid towards looking at clinical psychological disorders in sports, and hopefully this would decrease stigma and also increase that low rate of reports that we just mentioned, which was like 10% at the beginning, that I mentioned at the beginning. Right. So we propose looking at athletes within like a framework of labor law and mental health within the workspace. The framework that exists right now includes the American with Disabilities Act, which really protects athletes, or not athletes, workers against discrimination for reporting mental health or mental health impairment, because that it considers mental health impairment as a disability. But most importantly, it mandates that employers give accommodations to workers that claim mental health impairment. And then the next act that they have is the Mental Health Parity Act, which insists that health insurance includes mental health that in a way that's comparable to physical health. And then there's the Family and Medical Leave Act and the Workers' Compensation Act, which essentially protect the worker's job and income. So if anything happens while on the job, particularly with workers' compensation, if anything happens on the job that may predispose or lead to a mental breakdown or any mental impairment, then the employer is liable to firstly still paying the employee, but then also if a situation occurs that the employee can't go back to the position that they're already in, it's the employer's role to try retool the employee with, you know, and trying to change or trying to help them move into another field. And so I'm hoping as I'm saying this, it's kind of like we're kind of like seeing a link to how this could help, how this could work with athletes and how we view mental health. Right, next. So what we started to do, what we did for this research is we decided to do a qualitative project where we invited athletes to come lend their voice and their experiences. As Suzanne mentioned, we are, as Athletes for Hope, that is the position we stand. We believe that athlete voice and athlete choice is first and foremost, and that really we would love to be in a world where we see the athlete as whole, as a human, before we see them as an athlete. And so to stick to that mandate and to stick to those principles, we decided to make this an athlete-led paper. So their voice is riddled throughout the research. So we conducted qualitative open-ended surveys, and then we had a focus group. And then we also invited the athletes to submit reflexive paragraphs that also included their athlete positionality. So really being reflective on how their experience and their upbringing and even their socioeconomic status impacts how they look at mental health as an athlete and how they look at this research. And so we ended up with 5 co-authors. I had to count those quickly, 5 co-authors, which included the Christine Pinalto, who works at Sidelines USA, and that's an organization, but she works with so many athletes that we just thought that her input would be really important in this space. So our key findings from our interviews and all the pieces of writing that were submitted by the athletes was that, firstly, elite athletes, Olympians, Paralympians, collegiate athletes are professional athletes. They spend 48 hours of their day dedicated to their sport, whether it's training, whether it's in practice, whether it's viewing tapes. They are contractually obligated to show up, to perform, to compete. And also a significant portion of their financial and economic stability is owed to their sport. So if you look at it that way, I'm hoping that we can all see that, like, yeah, they are the same as professional athletes. And so if professional athletes are protected by labor laws, then shouldn't elite athletes too? We believe that the first thing that needs to be done is for us to relook at, and this is coming from, there are quite a few scholars, and there was a think tank that put these recommendations in place too, to redefine what mental health is for athletes and really broaden that spectrum of mental health from illness to wellness or harm or injury to just being physically fit, to include a whole continuum of an athlete's journey, really. So include competition time, include retirement time or close to retirement time, because mental health in these different places, it ultimately changes. So like an athlete who is obsessed with, you know, getting a certain number of hours or working on their swing during competition time is not the same you wouldn't look at that the same as an athlete who is in their off season. That obsession might raise a few alarms. And so it's just not standard across board. And so we love psychological supports that expand past just their performance and go into beyond the field, beyond the sport, beyond competition. However, we do find that a lot of the research and a lot of the support that is provided really focuses on competition and performance. And then we also found that in accordance with what the athletes were mentioning, is that there just needs to be more adequate and appropriate accommodations for athletes with mental impairments. So we decided through this research on the following recommendations for a Bill of Rights. We are trying to put together a coalition for this Bill of Rights. It's very early stages, but these are the recommendations we have thus far. There's still a lot of refining that needs to happen. There's still a lot of collaboration that needs to happen, but we believe this is a good starting point, a good impetus for us really putting work behind this Bill of Rights. And so our recommendations are that athletes have the rights to healthy bodies and healthy body image, to support in their career transitions, to adequately manage their injuries, to mental health support for performance on and off the field. Sorry, my slides are. To timely referrals to mental health experts for psychological disorders and conditions, clinical and non-clinical. To training, education, and awareness focused upon the importance of mental wellness, identifying mental health conditions, and finding mental health resources. And this is something that is highly reported. Just athletes don't know where to go. They don't know what resources are available to them. And so that education, I think, would go a long way in also improving that report rate that we described at the beginning. Athletes also have the right to coaches and trainers who are trauma-informed and have some level of mental health training. We do see some states starting to petition for or put on there are some bills actually that are being proposed for coaches having trauma-informed training and mental health training. We would like to see that be a national standard, and to equal and equitable access to mental health, really. So yeah, those are our references, but Suzanne is going to go into what we're trying to do now on the 31st of May. As we try to extend this research and hone in, on this Bill of Rights.
Sorry if I'm going too fast with the slides. I got excited.
It's okay.
Okay, good. Okay, good. I was like, click, click, click. I'm like, oh no. Okay, so Athlete Mental Health Advocacy Day. We are really excited to just launch a day of education for our legislators at the national level. And we invite anyone who wants to go to join us. We have plans to be there, kind of a half-day event. Again, we're looking at different state by state legislation that's out there. There's not a lot, but we're interested in getting a coalition started. So this event, we hope to build. This will be the first of many in our minds, that we would get together and talk to some of the key legislators that we know are passionate about athletes, about mental health, and pair the two to work towards this kind of national concept. So it's a free event. It's open to all ages and genders, abilities. We want, if there's an accommodation we need to make this more accessible for you, please let us know in advance. But we welcome anyone to join us. So yeah, we're excited to do more. We're just getting started, it feels like, in this space. The more we talk with athletes and with our partners, the more we do in our whole being athlete space around storytelling, the more people I think that are raising awareness about this, the better. And so we ask if you'd like to join us. There's a QR code on your screen. You can click that and join us for our Advocacy Day or any of our initiative moving forward. Some of it we'll be doing virtually ahead of the event. If you're not in the DC area, again, you can certainly still join us. We are trying to figure out where state by state we can have the best impact with our work. So we're very excited to talk with you all today about this and get it launched, and hope to see some of you in person in DC at the end of May. May is Mental Health Month.
Thank you so much. We would love to all come in May, except it's graduation time here at the university, so I don't know that we'll be able to make it. However, we had a presentation earlier today that defines sport in a very broad category, and so including electronic sports. And so I guess that all of us in one form or another would be an athlete, and all of us could be able to assist you in this wonderful activity.
Absolutely. We would love that.
I have a real fondness for this organization. I grew up in the Louisville, Kentucky area, and my dad was good friends with Muhammad Ali.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
and my niece works for the Ali Center now.
Huh.
So with
Incredible.
that, it's a small world, but it's the showing that one person can make a huge difference, which means all of us can do it too.
Exactly. Yeah, he used to come to our early workshops, and it was when he had pretty advanced Parkinson's, and he would come into the room and just sit. He wouldn't even necessarily play a role or do a whole lot, but it was like the rest of us were just, there, just pillars. Like he was just the whole reason people would show up, to be honest, because he was an incredible advocate. And so we're really honored to carry on his legacy with our work at Athletes for Hope.
So if anyone has questions, put them into the spot. And so we have a few minutes left. Would you like to share other pieces of your wisdom for takeaways for us until the questions come in?
Pieces of takeaways. Denise, do you have anything that you'd share?
Feel put on the spot.
I know, I'm like, what would I share?
No, I mean, right now, we, like as Suzanne said, we're really at the beginning stages of this, and so any help, any indications, any advice, anything that anybody comes across that you feel like would be beneficial for us to like include or consider, just even educate us better on this. We are still open to that. And again, just reiterating, like we would love to put together a coalition for this, and that obviously includes scholars. And so if there are any scholars that want to be a part of that coalition, we would love to have you involved. We do know that, the recommendations that we mentioned are pretty broad. There's a lot, and we do know that we need to hone in on just a few and try to be specific when we finally do really go down this path. And so for that, the more input, the better.
Well, sign me up, and I'm sure that many of the colleagues here that we've had today would be happy to be involved too.
We'd love that. Yeah, the more we've done this, the more, Denise, I think can't speak for Denise, but we both personally learned so much about people, and everyone is impacted by your mental health at some point. And so I think this really resonates for a lot of people, athlete or not. And so to be able to make an impact and connect in that way nationally has been really empowering. And so we're really thrilled to just continue this conversation and be part of the planning. So thank you for having us. This has been so helpful for us in moving this along.
Well, and thank you. Just as a note to everyone else, the book will be coming out with Suzanne and Denise's chapter, and Sarah's, and Matthew's, and Jeremy's, and Meng Li, and all of us. So we will be very excited. It comes out, I think, in October. It will be the first volume on human rights and sports, I think, in the world. And so we're very excited by that. So
very cool.
It is exciting because clearly everything is interdisciplinary, related, and we all have to work together, especially in this period of time. So,
Agreed.
right. Well, no other questions? Then thank you so much. We will take a break until the next and final session with Matthew.